Yeah. I think, yeah, I'm audible. So, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all my friends who are attending this webinar series from different parts of the globe, respectively. So, on behalf of Center of Excellence in Advanced Manufacturing Technology at IIT Kharagpur, I welcome you all in this webinar series. Just to give you an introduction about this, our Center of Excellence. The Center of Excellence in Advanced Manufacturing Technology has been set up early 2018 with the strong support from Department of Heavy Industries under the Ministry of Heavy Industries and Public Enterprises, and forming a consortium of top, the industries, 6 industries in our country. We do have 4 Tata Group members like Tata Steel, Tata Sons, Tata Motors, Tata Consultancy Services, and 2 public sector organizations. One is HEC Ranchi and another one is BHL. We started our journey with these 6 industries, and last year, early in January 2020, we do have, the addition of one startup in the consortium, that is Hemraj Infocom Private Limited. This Center of Excellence in Advanced Manufacturing Technology is dedicated to solve the industrial problems. We're creating an ecosystem between big industries, small industries, and also the academic institutes. We are also giving training to the MSME or the industry, the people on different, the advanced concepts of manufacturing, like the computerized numerical control. We have given training twice on CNC, and then third training is, third program is coming on the April 26. We are also planning to give training on different other topics of advanced manufacturing. We started the webinar series on March 13th. So today is the 4th Saturday. We had 3 webinars on 3 different topics. We have listened to from the academicians, their views on the different concepts. And today we have one industry person with us. We are standing on the era which is the industry 4.0. Every industry is looking for the implementation of industry 4.0 concepts into the manufacturing, the domain, the field, so that they can visualize, they can appreciate the importance of these tools in the different sectors of manufacturing. So one such concept is the artificial intelligence. People are thinking that how AI can be implemented on different, the aspects of manufacturing. So we listen to, the esteemed speaker today, Dr. Arpan Pal. I would like to introduce Dr. Pal for his, the webinar talk. Dr. Arpan Pal, distinguished Chief Scientist of TCS Research and Innovation. He has more than 20 years of experience in the area of signal processing, communication, embedded systems, and robotics. Currently, as research head, he is leading a team of more than 125 scientists of TCS research in the areas of connected health, smart cities, smart enterprises, smart manufacturing, tele-robotics, and remote sensing and smart TV. His research interests include cognitive robotic systems, affective computing, edge computing, intelligent sensing, signal processing, image processing, and AI, IoT applications and systems. Dr. Pal is on the editorial board of notable journals like ACM Transactions on Embedded Systems, Springer Nature Journal on Computer Science as well. Dr. Pal has filed more than 165 patents, out of which 85 has been granted in different geographies. He has published more than 140 papers and book chapters in reputed conferences and journals. He has also authored a book on IoT Internet of Things. Prior to joining Tata Consultancy Services in 2002, Dr. Pal worked for DRDO India as scientist for missile seeker systems from 93 to 97, and also in Rebecca Technologies from 97 to 2002 as the head of real-time systems. Dr. Pal is BTech and MTech from IIT Kharagpur and PhD from Aalborg University, Denmark. So with this brief introduction of the Dr. Pal, let us proceed to listen to Dr. Pal's the webinar on the AI sensing in manufacturing. So with this, I'd like to share the screen with Dr. Pal.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Professor Pal, for giving me this opportunity to give a talk here. And it is always a privilege to come back to your own alma mater and actually attend, give a talk into this kind of webinar. So without much here, let me just share my screen. My screen is visible?
Yes, it's visible. Yeah.
I hope my screen is visible. Yeah. Okay. So what I will do over the next maybe 45 minutes is actually to just give this new area of work that we are wanting to work and what we see as an opportunity in the advanced manufacturing space, which we call as this AI guided unobtrusive sensing. And I just covered that what it is and what exactly we are trying to do here. So what is this AI guided unobtrusive sensing? So effectively, if you see that in general, if you go to any factory, if you see there will be a lot of old foremen or other people there in the factory who can actually just hear, they can see, and they can feel, and they can tell what has gone down to the machine. So human observers in the factory can use their eyes and ears and other senses to monitor process quality and quality. It is it is there. But so that is how we got motivated that can we sense from away unobtrusively? Can we use my microphone and camera to do the same? Because so that is the first part, and then can we actually camera, microphone followed by AI is one kind of thing. And then we started thinking that is it the only thing we can do, or can you augment this, the standard vision and the auditory senses with other sensors, unobtrusive sensors, which can give some extra-human sensing capability, some sensing capability which humans cannot do. And then these ideas came that can we use radars and sonars and ultrasound and all those other things to really sense. So these are there actually in many pockets of the. So we are trying to generalize this and seeing how we can apply it across different vertical use cases. So what we mean by this AI-guided unobtrusive sensing is this concept of use standard sensing transducers, so which is the camera, mic, radar, sonar, whatever I have just talked about. But then you use AI-based processing on them to provide the sensing metrology. So effectively, so the example, like I'm telling that I'll tell later that can I actually use camera to measure vibration? So vibration is the metrology. And then using on this vibration, there can be other ways to infer something which is not scope of today's talk, but I am telling that how we can use this soft sensing as a proxy for in situ physical sensors installed on machines. And why it is needed is something that I'm going to tell next, that why this unobtrusive sensing. As we know, these Industry 4.0 objectives are kind of improve the asset uptime, improve the throughput, yield, and quality. Also work for safety is also very important. These are the areas. And we usually need data from equipment processes for asset maintenance or process quality analytics or people location activity. So this is a given, and this is what is the Industry 4.2 talks about it, and what this is what the IoT actually tries to enable. But the challenge that it is there, what we when we actually went to the market and we started talking to our customers, what we found one interesting thing that there's a large presence of legacy equipment with no built-in sensors or processes that are inaccessible. Same thing for people. And there's a figure that you can see that in the right top that 80% of plant equipment processing are more than 25 years old still. And I'm not talking about markets, developing markets like India. I'm talking about developed markets of US and Europe. Still, this is there. And when you actually try to sensorize this legacy machine, then there are a lot of challenges we started facing. So this retrofitting sensors actually needs a lot of work, and sometimes it's very costly. It is difficult to accommodate direct contact sensors because you may not be able to put sensors on that machine. It may it can invalidate the warranty, or maybe it can be interfering with the machine operations. Equipments can be in hard to reach places where you cannot put sensors. Other important thing is, if I want to monitor the yield, quality of the yield, it's not possible to embed sensors on the final product. Like if I'm welding, I have my output of a year's welding machine, I cannot put the sensor on the welded component or any other end produce that is being produced in assembly line. I cannot put sensors there. So how do we monitor the quality? And obviously, when I monitor, they always need to be sensed unobtrusively. Nobody likes to be with a lot of sensors on their body. So this is the idea which we came up that we are calling as unobtrusive sensing, that can we do a easily deployable, frugal and scalable sensing system, which is configurable via AI-driven software intelligence. And this is, I would call, what I would cover next is mostly the application use cases and the AI technology or signal processing technology behind it. But this diagram kind of gives us a kind of idea of what we are trying to talk here. Effectively, if you see in the bottommost here, we all have all my objects which I want to measure. So legacy, inaccessible equipment, internal processes, material, infrastructure, people, everything. We are kind of using some unobtrusive transducer, which are mostly available off the shelf. We are not going to build it, but sometimes you use the transducer to maybe you have to build an embedded device out of it so that it can actually do the necessary thing. But otherwise, this transducer are available. Electric current, thermography, microphone, vision with polarization, ultrasound, radio frequency, radar, optical, and maybe other things. So these kind of things are already available. What we do is we build a signal and image processing based AI and AI-based stack, which kind of for current, for acoustic, for radar, for 2D vision, for 1D sensor, we actually do a set of processing algorithms, which is aided by AI, and then fuse them together, which is again aided by AI. The outcome of this actually is not the, I would call the inference, but it is the metrology. So I can actually measure. It's like, think of this whole thing in the red box is a kind of a soft sensing black box. So which is ultimately is giving me range, velocity, vibration, frequency, shape, size, material, texture, location for people, maybe location, activity, behavior, physiology. So these are kind of, I'm measuring as if I had a sensor on the body, as if I had a sensor inside the machine or inside the process or the plant. But this, I'm not having anything on the bottom. I'm looking from away, but still I'm able to measure this. So that is the core of this work. And then this data is given to a traditional IoT data analytics engine, which will do the ultimate predictive maintenance, quality, inspection, safety. So that is not really the scope of my today's talk. I'm going to focus on what I am actually marked within the red box. And what is the value? So effectively, if you see the ease of custom deployment, this is we are seeing the biggest value which our customers are actually really appreciating this solution is that I'm able to sense from away. I'm not disturbing their setup. We're not disturbing their setup, and still we are able to get a similar kind of inferencing or measurement which was supposed to be there with a real on-body sensors. And because we are using commercial all the self-transducer, the cost of the system is also comes down, and that gives us a better ROI. And this improved inferencing and measurement accuracy comes because what has happens is moment we use this multi-sensor. And if you see what that's, I kind of get if you go back to the previous slide, if you see from left to right, or mostly you can see it starts from a very low frequency spectrum and goes to the extremely up to the optical spectrum. So we are almost capturing every frequency across the spectrum. And that gives us, and when we fuse this data, actually the quality of the information that we get, the sensing marker, that information that we get is actually maybe much better than if we use only one typical sensor or other things. And that actually gives us the improvement in the accuracy. And obviously, because we have an AI-driven processing pipeline, which allows us to actually adapt to diverse business requirements in software without actually changing the hardware. And as you see that we can use off-the-shelf sensors, like in smart plugs, some camera and some polarization camera, or sometimes we buy the transducers and make the sensors ourselves. And I will talk about this, all of this later anyway. So this is just the examples. So what we'll do now is, with this introduction, I will try to cover these 5 areas in my subsequent I'm going to talk about my subsequent slides. So I am going to talk about machine sensing applications. I'm going to talk about material sensing application and infrastructure sensing application, because we see these are the main 3 things that you need to do in a plant. Sometimes you have to sense machines, sometimes materials, and sometimes infrastructure. And the people sensing application also becomes important for safety and other things. And then I will kind of end it with the core thing that we do here, the algorithms and the frameworks we build to actually support this. I'll try to give a glimpse of that. So it will be more application oriented today's talk, and given the time, I'm not going to do any deep dive into any of the algorithms, but I'll try to give as much as possible references and pointers. So starting with machine sensing application, typical application is always in the predictive maintenance. In the we are seeing abnormality and fault detection, remaining useful life prediction. These are very standard. What we are trying to do is, let me put it this way. So these are one of our first projects that we did is almost 4 years, more than 4 years ago. We started our unobtrusive sensing journey with this solution, which is kind of, if you think of a concept, that the problem statement that came was like, suppose I have a motor or a pump. Can I monitor the pump rotational frequency and the vibration of the motor without touching it? And that problem we solved. First, what we did, we actually put a stroboscope plus camera. I think you know this stroboscope, it can actually set up LEDs which can flash at a certain frequency, and the camera is recording it. And we know that the stroboscopic effect, which you have seen in many of the movies and other areas. So moment the stroboscopic frequency will match the frequency of the rotational frequency of the pump or the motor will appear static. And otherwise, you see a very small movement. So we are using a vision-based algorithm to actually adjust the stroboscopic frequency to kind of match it by using the vision and making so that it can actually appear static. So whenever it appears static, the strobe frequency is same as the motor speed and the vibration. The other problem was that, so it needs a lot of complicated algorithm to do this initial, how do kind of get at what frequency I should strobe. And for that, we used a radar. Radar gives you a kind of a overall figure. Suppose in this machine, maybe that's some 2-3 fundamental frequencies. So radar will pick up all the frequencies together, and it will give pixel all of them. So what we do with the stroboscope is we bring a special kind of a resolution there. So it is an image. So I can tell that motor's left part is vibrating at frequency F1 and motor's right part is vibrating at frequency F2. That kind of a thing we can actually pick up. And we could do this. There's some good papers we could publish there. And this actually is having any machinery that has a rotating parts and even turbines. We are seeing important applications with this coming in turbine blades, monitoring and other things. And so this is the thing we actually did. And we have a working system in this. Second thing that we did was slightly beyond this, where the stroboscope was not used, but it is typically the replication of that concept I was telling in the beginning, that can I build eyes and ears of a person of using a set of sensing. And here you see that same monitoring we have a microphone array. So it can, so basically, which can now, with a signal processing, audio signal processing here, we can actually create a spatial audio map of the system. So I can actually tell which part of the machine, what kind of sound is coming out. I have again infrared temperature arrays, which can again give a my temperature distribution. And we can also use the radars to give me the vibration. So this vibration and the temperature and the microphone array together can give us, and along with, we can also put a additional camera separately. So effectively, if you see, this is mimicking the human. Yeah, so I have a camera as a vision, mic as my ear, the temperature node and the vibration is a proxy for the touch and screen. So that's what we do. So effectively, with this, we could create a lot of, I would call, visualization of machines. And we are now trying to see how we can apply in the real. So we have got some couple of customers here now. So it is becoming part of the TCS smart manufacturing solution that we are offering to our customers. And many of the customers are actually now going to pilot this. The third scenario of the machine is, again, the parties that I talked about. The current itself, I talk on it as unobtrusive sensing. The current that is drawn by the machine, because most of the machines are electrically driven. If I put a current loop kind of a sensor from outside, which are very cheaply available with a wireless connector, using this, can I actually try to predict the machine health? And we are working with a leading energy management company, global company, to actually see how this current can be used for predictive maintenance of electrical machines. So it is actually the electric machines like that is used in the distribution and the production. So can you reduce their downtime or actually do their appliance or health monitoring? So what we do here is, again, effectively, if you see the block, I will not go to the detail of it, but what we do is the current signature analysis to analyze the harmonic distortion of the motor current signal to identify various types of faults, like stator fault, rotor fault, exchange bearing faults. All these things actually have their own physics-based kind of a manifestation in the current load, and we try to identify that. But followed by that, we actually use a AI ML pipeline to extract the features and actually do some fault identification. So that's what we are trying to do. So we are fusing also metadata from power, rating, torque, all the other metadata that machine has, that is fused with the AI-based models to create this AI and rule-based deep learning-based models. And so that is what we are trying to do here, and we are already working with this energy management company for this. Next, I'll come to the material sensing. I talked about the machine sensing. I come to the material sensing application, where typically it is about quality inspection. So, and here we are saying this kind of use cases like raw material contamination detection, process material inspection, end product quality assessment. These are kind of coming as a requirement, and how do we do it unobtrusively is the requirement that we are seeing. So first use case that we did and is with a steel plant. Yeah, so it is Tata Steel, a group company. We did this POC. So if you see, this is a coal conveyor belt that is usually there with the blast furnace that carries the coal to the top of the blast furnace, and then it goes into a crusher, and from the crusher it actually is fed into the furnace. So now what happens is, because the coal is typically kept outdoor in the field, lot of foreign particle gets mixed in this coal. And you can see the top left right picture. This is kind of, it is a synthetic picture, but we have kind of kept those objects. It is a typical object that typically comes in, that we have just kept it there and taken a photo there. As you see, what the problem here is, because many of these things will be completely covered with cold soot and coal dust, almost all of them will look black. So we cannot use a normal RGB camera only to detect this as it flows through. Because the idea is, if it goes to the conveyor belt, I should be able to detect this and remove this in real time. So that is a requirement before it actually moves to the crusher, because you know that if the concrete slab goes into the crusher and it breaks the crusher blade, it will, maybe the plant will be down by about a day, which will be running into crores if you go there. So it's extremely important we detect it early. So what we did here was actually we fused the normal RGB camera with this polarization camera. And this polarization actually gives me the material information, even though the color is not there. And what we did was we did an AI-based fusion of this polarization and the RGB. And below you can start seeing that how the fusion together actually starts giving me a very nice picture of the outcome. And the other challenge was, how do we do it in real time? So effectively, we have to do a lot of parallel computing also to actually collect the data at 30 frames per second, and within 90 seconds, we have to give that warning. And I think I have a small video here. So which is actually you can see this, this is actually taken in the coal conveyor belt. As the belt comes and in real time, we are able to kind of fuses the RGB and the polarization together, and it detects whenever there is a foreign particle here, it detects that. So this is one good example, interesting use case. Second use case is actually, this is, I think, almost maybe more than 50% of the audience today will know this scenario, but this is work that we are working with IIT Kharagpur for the DHI COE, the project that we are doing. So where we are trying to detect, I would call, well quality assessment of FSW machine output. And what we are trying to contribute here, initially what we did was that can we actually fuse the force and the torque and the power? That is the thing that is there. What we are going to do now next is, and we are actually in the process, it got delayed by the COVID thing, but we are now deploying the radar and the acoustic array and the temperature sensor. So I'll just go back to here. So this is the setup. I think I told you the lab setup of this. So exactly this is the setup we are going to, with the mic and the radar and the temperature here. We are going to now replicate here, and we are going to collect. But we already have very good results on the fusion part of it. And so which is again a MLDL based fusion of the force torque power sensing is already there and giving very good result. We have some good publications. And I think when you augment this with the radar and the acoustic array and the higher temperature data, I think we are sure that we will be actually able to improve the accuracy beyond this even. So that is the next research that we are going to do with Professor Halstein. Another thing that is there, it's something, it's a concept at this point. We are still doing some basic lab POCs of this concept of can we measure the temperature profile in a furnace? It's a big challenge that how to do this. And most of the time, there are problems that you have to put thermometers, but it is very hot, so you have to use robots to put there or some other things. So the other solution that we are trying to see that can we actually measure the speed of the ultrasound to the furnace. And as we know, the sound speed actually varies with temperature and with the composition of the, I would call the gas through which it is traveling. So it becomes a very hard problem now that I have two unknowns. I have an unknown composition and I have unknown temperature, but I know the speed. So this is kind of becomes a very interesting AI-based physics. So basically fusion of physics-based model with AI to see can AI solve this, because I am having two kind of unknowns. So but it is solvable. So we are actually working. We already done a lab POC now, and we are actually now going for customer and to see how we can actually collect some real data to do this. So this is in a very early stage. But effectively for non-electric collecting of fluid and gas and from industrial purpose, this is very useful. The other work we are doing is also very early work of can we actually, so this is another sensing, because I talked about ultrasound, I talked about acoustic, I talked about radar vibration, I talked about vision, I talked about polarization. The other very important sensing that we are seeing, which is called acousto-optic sensing. The concept of acousto-optic is you actually illuminate a material with laser, optical laser. That laser actually, what I would call, it hits up the molecules. And as the molecules hits up and then cools, it happens in microsecond level, they actually emit ultrasonic sounds. So if I had an ultrasonic sensor, so I can actually, that is the acousto part. So basically it is like a radar, but you illuminate with the optics and you sense the return with the audio, acoustic ultrasound. And this actually gives a lot of information about the characteristics of that material. Effective, but especially for a liquid, it can give a lot of for its turbidity, for its viscosity, or for its density. You can actually get very, very accurate measurements. But again, it is not a straightforward thing. You have to actually you have to learn and train on AI-based model on top of it to give this kind of results. So, and one problem that we are working on, that can we actually do it for, because many machines have these engines and they have the engine oil. So can we actually measure the engine oil quality in situ by using this kind of sensor? So that today, most of these kind of inspections are done by taking a sample and they're carrying the sample to the lab. But we are trying to do, can I do a very affordable handheld or a in situ kind of a sensing through which we can do similar things. So this is the acoustic part. And then coming to pure vision, we have these are already kind of customer deployment use cases, I tell you. So one was this PCB manufacturer, this is basically PCB electronic manufacturing factory. And there they wanted to get a PCB defect detection. And we used only, that can be done with the pure vision. Simple camera itself we can actually do, but we have to actually automate a lot of things and sophisticated algorithms to make sure that we have an extremely high accuracy of detection. The second problem was slightly more challenging, which came from it was one of the largest car seat manufacturer in the world. It is a US company. And as we know, because they are the largest here, they are extremely finicky about the quality of the car seats they manufacture. So what you see in the picture here is the seat that is on the assembly line as it gets manufactured. If there's a very small wrinkle in that, like some examples you are saying, we have to, in real time, we are supposed to detect it, and that is in real time, it will be rejected. And not only rejected, based on that feedback, the process parameters has to be changed so that it actually the such wrinkle doesn't occur. The tuning also they want to do. And again, this we did. Initially, the problem statement was we had a huge computing facility and a lot of data, and we could do it pretty high accuracy, this detection. But the challenge came when we actually wanted to do it in the on the factory itself. So on the assembly line itself, if you have to do, there are a lot of constraint on the computing power that you have got, how we can deploy, and many other things. And typically, this is the edge computing problem. I'll cover that later, but I'm telling you, the requirement was that how do we actually do it on an edge device with a camera sitting on top of the assembly line with a small computer attached to it? How can I do it in real time? So that is the challenge, and that is the research challenge we try to solve. So now I'll come to the infrastructure sensing applications. Again, here mostly the predictive maintenance of infrastructure abnormality, process abnormality is usually the requirement. So one typical problem we are seeing, and this is there in the oil and gas industry more, but similar problems are there in what we would call chemical process industry, manufacturing industry also. And so one problem is this: how do you actually detect the scaling inside a pipe? Can we see from outside and do it? So we are actually now working with this customer to actually we are building this solution where we are using ultrasound, and we are actually seeing the resonance, how it actually changes. We are modeling the resonance. First, we do a computer simulation to model it and actually train an AI model around with the simulated data. And then we use that in the real world to actually do this kind of. So as you see that when the scaling and all that there, the resonance frequency shifts and many other kind of artifacts come out in the frequency response. So we are trying to catch this. And ultimately, the requirement is to measure the scaling thickness. This usually is the delta F. You can see this delta F there. So the frequency here. So it actually gives the indicator of the scaling thickness, which is a very important parameter for these companies. Second problem, again, it is I would call this is not a manufacturing problem, but I kept it because there's interesting sensing here. It is a pure oil and gas problem. This oil gas company has pipelines of hundreds of kilometers, thousands of kilometers long. So the leak detection in these pipelines is a big challenge for them. Technology exists there for leak detection, but those two things are very, very localized leak detection. So it may we have to put it every 100 meters. You cannot imagine to put in a 10-kilometer pipeline, you cannot put a sensor every 100 meters. It's just simply not cost effective or viable to do that. So what we proposed, and we are now actually doing a POC. This is a company, one of very large gas companies. We are actually now starting the pilot where we have proposed to use infrasound. Infrasound is, as you know, it is a sound that is below 20 hertz frequency. And because it is infrasound and very large wavelength, it travels very long. So infrasound is reported that it can travel up to tens of kilometers. So we can actually detect, we are proposing to detect leaks from 30 kilometers away. So now you can see that if I can get 30 kilometers away instead of 100 meters, that is the cost advantage people will get, because every 30 kilometers you need only one sensor. No. So that is the idea. So if we could actually make that happen, that it is a kind of a game changer and millions of things can be saved. But it is still, lab POC has worked, simulations have worked, but as you know that we are in industry, so now we have to work in the field, and that is what is going on now. Maybe in another 6 months, you'll know whether it works in the field. Then other problem, again, this is any assembly line may have this kind of a problem, and this is a pure vision-based thing. And when sometimes things get jammed, and because of some things gets blocked, and then rest of the things cannot move. And so again, here, if you see the challenge is actually, again, the vision part is there. The 34 cameras are used to monitor this. The real customer actually in the plant, it is covered, 34 cameras. Today, it is done by a lot of people actually monitoring these manually and other things. And so the problem that is given to us and we solved is that can we actually now use AI to automate this detection? So that the clearance part is still manual. Clearance part also will become robotics driven as we go in the future. But at this point, at least we are trying to automate this detection part of the journey. So now we'll move to the people sensing. So I covered the machine, material, and the infrastructure. So application-wise, this is my last part. Then I'll move into the technology part. So people sensing application, mostly it will be safety and well-being is the application. Typically is a geofencing, ergonomic activity compliance, vital sign monitoring. These are the kind of things people are looking at in the factory. So one problem that is very contemporary problem we are working with on the vaccine manufacturers. So they wanted to actually geofence their vaccine, because when vaccine manufacturing there are zones which are actually they have to kind of make a completely, some places human being cannot go. Some places if they go they have to be quarantined because that is a high risk zone. So there are multiple such things up there. So they wanted to know that can we actually do a very fine localization. But indoor localization technology usually it is there. It kind of gives you in meter, say 1 meter, 2 meter accuracy. That is not going to work. We need a centimeter level accuracy to work in this kind of thing. So we had worked with ultra wideband radars here, and we actually demonstrated a centimeter level accuracy here now, and we are now into the pilot mode here. And we also have an idea that if there, in some cases they want even a better accuracy, and we are fusing again LIDAR and the ultra wideband radar together to get the desired location accuracy. So it's a very interesting problem here. Second problem was actually what I talked about, this ergonomics. Suppose a human operator is actually operating certain machines. Are they doing it the right way? So here what we did, we actually used a radar, FMCW radar to, and by the way, this FMCW radar also, we have a joint project with IIT Kharagpur Electronics Department, and from there we actually, the radar is built, the front end. So using this radar data, we are using AI, we are creating a spectrogram out of it and using AI on top of that to detect different kind of gestures. So how the leg, and so basically we are using two radars, one in the bottom and one on the top side. And we actually through that we can get the complete leg and the hand movement and the torso movement. And using that we can classify this kind of activities which can be now used for this kind of ergonomic modeling or safety modeling, or that are they doing that thing the right way? So that kind of thing. One paper also we could do this. So the third last one here is actually is that, so vital sign is also very important for worker safety. So many people, many workers actually work in a very hazardous zone. So we have to monitor the heartbeats and the breathing at least. And they don't want to wear anything. Yeah, so it is very hazardous. So today we have a system using radar, because radar when you in the chest, if it reflects back from the chest wall, when it reflects, getting the breathing is very easy. But chest, it also gets modulated by the heart, because radar also penetrated through our skin and gets reflected from the heart wall also. And it is a very minor, so you need to use a lot of sophisticated signal processing to separate out both the breathing and the heart rate. So this also, we had a very recent paper on USIPCO, which is one of the topmost signal processing conferences. And this will have a lot of applications as we go forward. So safety is there, but many other cases this will be coming later. So now that I talked about these applications, so now I'll tell how we are doing it. So what is the code here? The code is a set of algorithms and frameworks because TCS ultimately we are a software company. So one is the signal for informatics vision pipeline, and we have actually automated it through some automated ML kind of a thing, that automated generation of this software. So how much, as less human intervention possible, we can actually create a pipeline to process. Then I talked about the fusion. We have also automated the fusion. And then there's the edge computing. I talked about it, and I'll briefly touch upon the last part, the robust and practical AI, which is the real problems in the field that is there. So this paper we wrote in very 2014, actually, the IoT thing, which now we are seeing this model-driven development for IoT, which we are now seeing how we are kind of applying in this kind of things to automate the development. So first automation is coming in the vision processing pipeline. I'll not go to the details of it, but we have a pipeline which is kind of a 2D and 3D processing. The whole pipeline, given a data and given a problem, it automatically generates the code that is needed to process that. So the basic research we did with as ISC Bangalore professors, but effectively, if you see that we take the input data, but any application like scene understanding, activity detection, object detection, so we can actually do this through, if it is fed some training data, everything else actually automatically adapts as a code. So this is one part. Same thing we also did with the sensor signals, 1D signals. This research we did with ISI Kolkata, and I will not go to the details, but effectively what you see here is the most important for the signal processing firms is actually the feature engineering. How do we actually compute the features that are causally correlated with the event you want to detect? And that part we have actually now automated using some AI-based approach. And quite a few of publications are there. You can see with some very good venues of IJCNN and some good AI conferences and the same conferences we have published there. And this is also a very matured asset. And this vision and the sensor signal together, we are actually creating our AI pipe kind of a thing, what we are calling a sensorium.ai, which is the heart of our all such this kind of system that we are going to do. And we also had, I talked about the sensor fusion, which is again, if you see, we have an AI-driven way to, when there are multiple sensors coming in, we have a system now given a labeled data that which kind of wants to, whatever you tell what he wants to detect, it can automatically find out from which sensor, which features I should pick up. It uses some domain knowledge from the physics and but it also uses AI to kind of do this. And it doesn't. We are collaborating with IIIT Delhi in this. This also got published in last year USIPCO. And you see a glimpse of this is what you saw in that fusion of the friction stir welding machine. So this is a more generalized view. Application of the one of that was in that FSW machine fusion. So now coming to the edge computing, I briefly touched upon it, but effectively for any this kind of system to reduce latency, to preserve the privacy, to improve the reliability and reduce the cost, we have to do the compute in the edge. We cannot afford to move the AI into the cloud because there is an issue on the constant CPU memory, there is a bandwidth issue, battery issue to do it on the edge. So how do we do it? So there are a lot of other things are coming out. So important thing is actually applications, as you see, that it will be mostly real-time sensing control and privacy analysis applications. But most important thing is that you have to do some model compression and partitioning acceleration for AI models to run it on the constant edge devices. And learning at edge is a much more difficult problem anyway. And there's a whole new thing coming up as a community called Tiny Edge or Tiny ML, which are very small microcontrollers. Can we put AI on them? So a lot of work is happening there. So many of the applications I talked about, they are actually moving into the edge using this framework that we have. So lastly, that effectively whatever we have done, but in reality, when we actually do it on field, there are certain practical issues. And I just thought that I'll just touch upon that before I close. So one immediate concern is that cost of data annotation. So we know that AI works pretty well, machine learning works pretty well when you have labeled data. Who labels the data for you and who pays for that labeling? So this is the question our customers are asking again and again. So one part is definitely crowdsourcing or data annotation. So that is one way to do it, and we are trying to do that. The other thing that we are trying to do, can we train with extremely small data? So the labeling cost comes down. So the concept of few-shot learning, unsupervised learning, active learning, imitation learning, everything is coming now in this space. The third thing that is coming is, can we actually augment the domain knowledge or scientific knowledge into the AI model? So we have some examples of doing that. And finally, how do we scale and deploy? So effectively, maybe this is a thing we saw that I suppose I have a customer who has 3 factories. In the first factory, they allowed us to collect data for 3 months, label it, and then try to train a model out of it, and then deploy there. So now when the customer wanted to move to the second factory, then they will not allow you to again give you 3 months to collect data. So that is where this pre-trained model and transform. So you have to transfer because that factory may have to be different from the current factory. So how do you transfer the learned models there? So that is a challenge. And the other challenge, future concern, is this explainable AI, liability trust. I'll just to touch upon these points as we go forward. First is this unsupervised learning. Anyway, I told that so very recently we got a very good paper published on what we call as this hierarchical clustering using auto. So there's a concept of autoencoder in deep learning. So can we use this to actually not only it can be used to label data automatically with some small examples of label that is given here. So it actually reduces the annotation cost, because if I have 1,000 points data sets to annotate, I'll only use 100 from an expert, less 900 I'll use this tool to annotate. And it also corrects annotation errors, and it also can do so many detect anomalies, track sensor trips, so which is very much in the manufacturing is there. So it can actually do this kind of thing. So this kind of unsupervised learning systems are very important. Now the challenge that is there now, just kind of the more philosophical this thing. So when you use AI in this kind of manufacturing systems, so will people trust it? Because are AI-driven machines really predictable, or can they be trusted? Because we trust predictable machines. Remote control we can trust. In TV, it is a machine. Car we trust, because it is in 100 times out of 100, it will do the same thing. In AI, will tell I am a very good AI, will have 99% accuracy. So means every 100 times, if I build a AI-driven this kind of a thing, every 100 times, one time it will go wrong. So can we trust the systems? That's a philosophical question. Second problem is this liability of AI-driven decisions. So as I telling that what the examples I gave, that using AI for controlling machines or driving autonomous cars or robots, predicting machine health or monitoring worker safety. So it is different from detecting your friends' faces in Facebook or understanding voice command on Alexa, which is typically where the AI is used to, isn't it? Here, but this kind of application error can cause harm or death. So one challenge is that who takes the liability of such false classification or false wrong prediction that will happen through this kind of thing that we are doing? Because finally it has to be human in it. So one thing that we are seeing as a feedback from the market or industry is that, yes, they want the human expert to be in the loop, but for that human to actually certify or take liability of the AI decisions, they have to actually, the AI has to become interpretable and explainable, which is again a big challenge. And can we actually be validated by scientific knowledge? For example, can we fuse the database model and physics-based model? I know Professor Pal is doing one project there. This data models and physics models are confused together to build a digital tool. So that is the way to go. How do we do that? And there are bigger problems on ethics, bias, right, wrong, those kind of things, which are still unsolved. So at the end, future novel sensing modalities, that is my last slide. So as we go for what I told is what we are building, but what is the future? And these are the things that we are actually started working on. We are starting to work very soon. One is the radars and ultrasound-based imaging of occluded space, because because microwave can penetrate walls. So can it see inside the box or the body or inside the wall? And can it see below the surface? Below the surface is an extremely important application for composite inspection. Whenever you have a composite-based material. And So the concept of synthetic aperture radar, which was there in satellite for satellite imaging and computation imaging, now is coming back here to really image the occluded space radar. So we can actually use radar based here, or you can think of it as an X-ray of your body. You can create with the radar, and that can be a very interesting thing. Or what is in, suppose a box is going through a assembly, I said, what can I see inside the box? So anything that is non-metal, we can actually see inside. Second thing that is coming is the metamaterial, which is again a very interesting idea of modifying the surface of a material with very small patterns, which is actually comparable to the wavelength of the impingement wave. So effectively, when you are talking about optical, we are looking at nanometer level scale here, because that is the wavelength there. But if in microwave, it is a centimeter level thing, which is much more doable. By doing this, you can actually, this is what the technology that is used in stealth aircrafts. So it kind doesn't reflect the waves. That it impinges, it kind doesn't reflect, it passes through. It is done through this metamaterial based thing. But what we can do is this is extremely narrow beam programmable surfaces. It has a lot of applications in manufacturing is coming, and don't have time to describe that, but it is another area that is becoming hot. And the third area is the cognitive robotics area. So one is this cognitive sensing and actuation of robot for teleoperation of the robot. So teleoperating a robot from far away, like performing a surgery, performing a repair, sitting 2,000 miles away, is now becoming application people are looking for. And the other application is the affective computing, where robots can be controlled by human thoughts, or robots are anticipating the human intent behavior or mental state by sensing the humans. Maybe, that I told about the heart rate. If I could change the heart rate and I can track my heart rate variability, we know heart rate variability actually has a direct relation to my stress. The robot will be knowing to know that whether I'm stressed or not. And so this is how kind of cooperation of robots and humans, this kind of things will become very important. So with that, I'll conclude. I think I am on time. And this many of the things actually it is taken from this book that I wrote on the IoT technology solutions. But that I think is still a kind of a 5-year-old book, and rest of the applications what you saw is mostly are more recent that we are actually working with. So with that, I'll end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Paul. It was a the wonderful presentation. You have covered a lot of areas. You have given insight to the unobtrusive sensing. Different types of the sensors, how they can be effectively utilized for various manufacturing process and all. So it's really the wonderful, and I am pretty sure that there will be a lot of questions from the audience as well. So any questions from the audience?